Springs Elementary. I'm Miss Alicia. I'm president of the PTSO, and I am here today to read chapters 5 and 9. Chapter 5, The Gathering Storm. Alan and Joe stopped in an orchard by a pile of fresh dirt. "You think you'll be able to do it?" asked Alan, biting his thumbnail. "I don't know," said Joe. "He can't do it," said Alan. "How could anybody eat 15 worms? My father'd kill me. $50? He ate one, and that was awful easy." "Forget it," said Joe. "If he doesn't give up himself, I'll figure something out. We could spike the next worm with pepper. He'd eat one piece, and then another," talking to Tom, "and then all of a sudden, he'd sneeze. Ka-choom! Then he'd sneeze again, ka-choom, and again, ka-choom, ka-choom, and a faint look of panic would creep over his face. He's beginning to wonder if he'll ever stop. He clutches his stomach, his eyes begin to water, ka-choom, ka-choom. "Billy's awful stubborn," said Alan. "Even if it was killing him, he might not give up." "Ka-choom, ka-choom," cried Joe. "He falls to the floor. I bend over him. 'Geez,' I say, 'call his mother. It's Troglodiosaurus.' His eyes beat up at me. Ka-choom." "Remember that business last summer," said Alan, gnawing on his thumbnail, "when it was 95 degrees in the shade and I dared him to put all of his winter clothes on and his father's raccoon coat and his ski boots and walk up and down Main Street all afternoon? Ka-choom, ka-choom." They went through the orchard, Joe sneezing, sighing, rolling his eyes, pretending to be Billy suffering from a dose of a peppered worm. Alan moaning to himself about how stubborn Billy could be. $50. Chapter 6, The Second Worm. Billy sighed. On the plate before him lay the last bite of a worm under a dab of ketchup and mustard. "What's the matter?" asked Tom. "I don't know," sighed Billy. He picked up the fork again. "Does it taste bad?" "No," said Billy wearily. "I just taste ketchup and mustard mostly. It makes me feel sort of sick, even before I eat it, just thinking about it." He sighed again, and then he glanced at Joe and Alan talking to each other in whispers over by the window. "What are you whispering about?" "Nothing." "Then what are you whispering for?" "Nothing. It's not important. Just something Joe's father told him last night." "What?" "Come on, finish up. It's nothing. We'll miss the cartoons." Billy shut his eyes and popped the last piece of worm into his mouth. He chewed and gagged, clapped his hands over his mouth, and gulped, gulped, toppled backwards off the orange crate. Sprawling on his back in the chaff, he gazed peacefully at the ceiling. Joe and Alan stood over him. "Open up." Billy opened his mouth, wider. "See any, Joe?" "No," he answered. He swallowed it. "Okay, let's go." Chapter 7, Red crash helmets and white jumpsuits. After the movies, Tom walked home with Billy. "Tomorrow I'll roll the crawler in cornmeal and I'll fry it, like a trout." "It's not really the taste," said Billy. "It's more the thought. When I start to eat it, even though it's smothered in ketchup and mustard and grated cheese, I can't stop thinking worm. Worm, 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 worm. Gaggles of worms in bait boxes, drowned worms drying up on sidewalks, a worm squirming in the fishhook gores into him, the soggy end of a worm dangling off of a dead fish's mouth, robins yanking worms out of the lawn. I just can't stop thinking worm." "Yeah, but if I fry it in cornmeal, it won't look like a crawler," said Tom. "I'll put parsley around it and some slices of lemon, and then you can concentrate and think fish. All the time you're waiting in the barn, all the time you're eating it, keep saying to yourself, 'Fish, fish, 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 fish. Here I am, eating fish. Good fish. Trout, salmon, flounder, perch. I'll ride my mini bike into church. Dance, tuna, haddock, trout. Wait, you'll hear the minister shout, 'Fish, fish, 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 fish. Shark, haddock, snuckler, eel. I'll race my father in his automobile. Eel, flounder, bluegill, shark. We'll race all day till after dark.'" Billy cheered up. "Think how they'd stare. I'll rev up the aisle, zip around the front few pews, down a side aisle under the stained glass window. My parents would kill me. Reverend Yarder'd peer down on the Bible stand. "William," he'd cry, "William, you take that engine thing out of here this minute." "Yeah, and then they'd come chasing after us, Tom." Billy laughed, waving their arms and yelling. "And we'd lead them zigzag around in and out among the gravestones and monuments in the cemetery and then roar off down to Sandgate Road, leaving them draped over tombs, panting and shaking their fist." "Hup, hup," yelled Tom, dancing around and boxing in the air. And that Monday, we'd smuggle into class disguised as Raymond Diwali because he's so fat and hide under his coat in the closet. And then when Millie Butler said anything at all, even something like "excuse me," or if she sniffed, we'd dump a whole bottle of ink over her head and run for the closet, overrunning chairs and desks behind us to slow up Miss Howard. She'd come after us, fuming and shouting threats, and suddenly the doors of the coat closet would slam open, and out we'd roar on our mini bikes, in our bluttered crash helmets and white jumpsuits, our scarves screaming out behind us, and we'd roar around and around the classroom while Miss Howard knelt among the overturned desks and chairs, sobbing helplessly into her hands, and then rum out the door and up the hall, thumbing our nose at the monitors. Brackety, brackety, brackety up the stairs, stiff-arming tacklers into Miss Simmons' office, up onto the desk. Broom, broom, a backfire into the face, and zoom, out the window as he topples backwards in his chair in a hurricane of quiz papers and report cards. And then crunch, landing on the driveway. We roar down the highway to Bennington and join the Navy, and Miss Howard and Miss Simmons and our parents can't punish us. Chapter 8. The Third Worm. Tom ran out of the kitchen of Billy's house, holding the sizzling frying pan out in front of him with both hands, the screen door banging behind him. Alan threw the barn door when he saw him coming. Tom thumbed the frying pan down the orange crate. "There," he said breathlessly, "done to a T. Look at her, all golden brown and sizzling. It looks good enough to eat." "Yeah," said Billy. He poked the worm with his fork. Tom took off the potholder glove he was wearing. "Think fish," he said. "Remember, think fish. Trout, salmon, flounder, perch. I'll ride my mini bike into church. Eel, salmon, bluegill, trout. Wait till you hear the minister shout. Clam, flounder, tuna, sucker. Look out. Here we come, old Miss Tucker. Lobster, black bass, oyster stew. There goes New Orleans. Here comes Peru." He leaned over Billy and whispered into his ear, "Fish, fish, 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 fish. Go on, take a bite. Fish, 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 fish. Okay, second bite. Fish, 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 fish." Chapter 9. The Plotters. "Geez, you think it'll work?" said Alan to Joe. "Suppose it doesn't. He doesn't seem to pay much attention today." "Don't worry," said Joe. "We got him thinking. It takes time. I got it all doped out. Trust me."